Good morning again. Good morning, America. Good afternoon somewhere else. Good evening also somewhere else. Um, Once again with you, Omar Muhammad from the program on extremism. And today I'm accompanied by a special guest, Sheikh Al-Anud Al-Khalifa, who is a distinguished international relations professional. She's a diplomat. She has background in foreign affairs with a robust strategic communication expertise. She is currently the first secretary at the Embassy of the Kingdom of Bahrain in the United Kingdom. Uh, Before that, she was the first secretary at Bahrain's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where she specialized in the Department of European Affairs and headed NATO and numerous European countries' desk within the Kingdom of Bahrain. Um, she studied international relations at Geneva School of Diplomacy in Switzerland. She is currently and hopefully very soon is obtaining her MA in Strategic Communication from King's College from the War Studies Department. And she has extensive expertise over 15 years of diplomatic career, but also expertise in communication and international affairs. Um, Sheikh Al-Anud, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omar. It is my pleasure to join you on this panel, and I would like to thank you and the program on extremism at George Washington University for having me.
Thank you very much again. In fact, as we discussed before, I was checking my notes today, and I thought probably this is the first time we talk about extremism and terrorism purely from a Middle Eastern perspective and also from the Kingdom of Bahrain. Because often when we discuss terrorism and extremism, because we are in the United States, but also because our work in Europe and the United States, so we mostly work on a definition that is limited to US and Europe, the United States and Europe. And oftentimes the situation in Middle East, specifically how terrorism impact our countries, how extremism evolves, is not just the fact that there is violent extremism. It's also what is damaging to our countries is also the non-violent extremism, and it's not the same in the US, United States, the UK, and our countries. So this perspective is very important personally to me, but I also know that many people always ask, how does it work in Middle East? How does it work in countries like the Kingdom of Bahrain? This is why we hope to today try to explain, try to navigate through this situation. What are the threats that are mostly impacting countries in the Middle East? How is the regional cooperation working? How is the cooperation between Middle Eastern countries, Gulf countries, and also on international level within the EU, within the United States, and other parties? I think this is going to lead us to more understanding, and I believe, as you already know, as a diplomat, I think Middle East is changing. So our vision or our view of extremism in the Middle East should also change. It was at one point limited to the fact that it only comes to or to combat extremism only when, or is terrorism only when, like, a lunatic shows up in a mosque and say, I am the caliph, follow me, and they bring the destruction with them. But I think we have long abandoned the root causes of extremism, that we should work on it, that we should address it. But also there are multiple factors and external influencers working on destabilizing the region. So the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us, and I'm really personally looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omar, and I totally agree with you. It is crucial to have the perspective from the Middle East, and I'm happy to be here and share the Kingdom of Bahrain experience. Personally, I can't remember when I last turned on the TV and wasn't struck by a new challenge facing the international community. Yet I think there are causes for guarded optimism. There are no challenges or crises that cannot be overcome, and history informed us that even the most complex global issues can be resolved peacefully. And the long struggle against radicalization, whether we are talking about hyper-nationalism, extreme ideologies, or religiously fueled radicalism, has historical precedents, and as do the strategies for dealing with them. And in our wider region, the Kingdom of Bahrain is all too familiar with the dangers of not confronting radical ideologies. And we have been proactive in our strategy in countering them. And as you know, terrorism is not only a military or a security issue, it affects social cohesion, economies, foreign policy, and national morale. Therefore, responses must be equally complex and coordinated. And as terrorism has three stages, it starts from extremist ideas, and then funding, and then execution. So that's why in this panel, I would like to cover all aspects and of this threat. And if you allow me, I would like to share a brief presentation about the main Bahrain strategies in countering radicalism and and terrorism. Um, is the screen is
Yes, we can see it. If you don't mind, yes, perfect.
okay? So, just a second. Is it still clear, Dr. Omar?
Yes, but I think you should present it because the
Yeah.
same one at the bottom, yes.
Okay.
Exactly that.
Okay, wonderful. So I will start with a brief about our historical context of extremism in Bahrain. We unfortunately had, in our experience, mainly we've been the target of terrorism, in particular from foreign-backed groups.
Mhm.
And at the peak of the Syrian conflict, we had only some 40 Bahrainis, and it's out of our population of 1.5 million who joined Daesh. And also, we had another challenge in facing a specific challenge, including decades of the Iranian attempts to incite sectarian division and hatred and violence. Two of the Iran-backed groups called Saraya al-Ashtar and Saraya al-Mukhtar are designated as terrorist groups in the United States and the United Kingdom and other countries around the world. And as you know, Dr. Omar, regional conflicts played also a crucial role in shaping extremist ideologies, whether in Bahrain, the Middle East, or internationally. In this slide, I will just give a brief about the Bahraini Kingdom of Bahrain commitment to regional and international peace and stability. We actually very active through hard power, either by participating in coalitions formed to combat terrorism, including, for example, joining the global coalition to defeat Daesh. And also, we joined the Islamic military counter-terrorism led by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and also through soft power by establishing the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance in 2018. We also hosted several United Nations conferences that have issued important recommendations concerning the drying up of terrorism financing sources, as well as conferences aimed at supporting the role of education in combating extremism. And politically, the signing of the Abraham Accords with the State of Israel in 2020 was an important mechanism to promote the values of tolerance and coexistence and to delegitimize groups that promote extremist ideologies and exploit religious, sectarian, and regional conflicts as a basis for their ideology. And in addition, Bahrain has enacted legislation criminalizing terrorism and extremism. And we are, for example, the first country in the region to regulate donations to charities in Bahrain. And this efforts indicates that Bahrain has a comprehensive, multidimensional strategy to counter extremism, radicalism, and terrorism. In the next slide, we will see here the core principles of our counter-extremism. So the kingdom adopts the 5 Ps framework, which is a classic counter-terrorism and extremism framework internationally, which is prevention, protection, pursuit, preparation, and resilience. And we do focus on prevention, de-radicalization, and legal reform. We also focus on the community safety as a cornerstone of national security. For us, international cooperation is very crucial in our counter-extremism and terrorism strategy. So we have a coordination between all levels of government, including all ministries. And we have the Ministry of Interior, who's leading the counter operations and coordination, and the Supreme Defense Council, who integrates international policies, and the Ministry of Justice, which cooperate with social services as well as other ministries in the kingdom. And here, I think it's one of the most important tools that we use to counter terrorism and extremism. And we have paid a special attention to the financial sector. And also we implemented measures aimed at cutting off funding to extremist groups. This is achieved by strengthening the capabilities of the National Financial Investigation Center, with the body that is responsible for receiving and processing reports of money laundering, terrorist financing, and illicit cross-border money transfers. And this includes cooperation with financial and regulatory institutions, along with a strict commitment to implementing relevant Security Council resolutions. And this approach reflects the kingdom's determination to dry up the sources of terrorism by depriving extremist and terrorist groups of the resources that enable them to destabilize security and stability. And here, the international cooperation, which I think it is in the fight of terrorism, every country, this is one of the most important aspect on countering terrorism, as it's a cross-border threat. So we are an active member of the international community, and we strongly support cooperation on the institutional levels to confront radicalization and to learn lessons as well and best practices from our friends and allies. And also we can contribute with our own experiences. And here I would like also to stress that King Hamad Global Center pushed for coexistence and tolerance, pushed for and achieved a huge success this year, having the United Nations designating 28th of January as the International Day of Peaceful Coexistence. International cooperation also helps develop the proper legal framework for dealing with radicalization and ensuring equality of legal consequences for the entire supply chain of radicalization, either financiers or backers, narrative generators, and echo chambers. And in the other slide, here I want to highlight the role of the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance, as it is established as a soft power in confronting the radicalism and extremism. And maybe something I can share about the history of Bahrain is how Bahrain was a crossroads for ancient trade routes, which fostered openness and interaction with other civilizations. And therefore, it is not surprising that Bahrain today hosts around 165 nationalities from various religions and backgrounds, coexisting without conflict. And Bahrain has ensured the freedom to practice religious rituals. So we have mosques, churches, and the Jewish synagogue, and there are, which was established in 1930, in addition to other places of worship for various religions. And King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance has achieved a lot of, you can see here in the slide, they launched the King Hamad Award for Coexistence and Tolerance, and also initiated King Hamad Faith and Leadership Program in cooperation with Oxford and Cambridge universities here in the UK, and also funded King Hamad Chair in Interfaith Dialogue at Spienza University in Italy. They also established King Hamad Center for Cyber Peace in New York. And one of the among the center's most significant activities, I think, is the organization of conferences and to promote tolerance and coexistence. For example, we can see here in the picture His Majesty King Hamad with the late Pope Francis during his visit to the kingdom in 2022 to attend the East and West Towards Human Coexistence Conference, and which was actually along with Grand Imam Dr. Ahmed Al-Tayyib, the Sheikh of Al-Azhar. And also saw a participation from 79 countries. And one of the main outcomes of the conference was the establishment of a permanent committee for Islamic Christian dialogue between Muslim Council of Elders and the Vatican. Here, I would like just to highlight some of our community engagement and approach in countering extremism. And I think other countries might think that this is a useful model to copy. So we have the Bahrainuna program, which means our Bahrain, which the goal of this program is fostering a sense of community and national identity among all of Bahraini citizens. And also we have the Ma'an program, which means together, which was developed in partnership with the US DARE International and the University of North Carolina. And it's actually not targeting, it's delivered to boys and girls from the age of 5 all the way to the high school. And the aim of the program is to counter extremism, violence, and addiction, and to protecting the youngest in our society by giving them the skills they need to excel. In education, which is, I think, also shows how Bahrain comprehensive and holistic approach in countering extremism and terrorism focused on many areas, and one of them, the most important one as well, is education. So we have our peaceful coexistence and anti-extremism curriculum, which was developed by international experts and delivers a comprehensive, engaging, and effective course to promote the values of tolerance and mutual respect. I hope I'm not taking long because we only have 2 more slides, but I want to highlight in this slide one of our unique, I would say, initiative in rehabilitating the former extremists. So we have in Bahrain established the open prisons and alternative sentencing programs. And these programs are the first of its kind in the Middle East. and represent an innovative approach by all standards to rehabilitate and train medium and high-risk beneficiaries according to the highest international standards, facilitating their reintegration into society. And actually, the Open Prison Program motto is خطأ إصلاح نجاح, which means in English error, reform, and success. And these programs represent the approach upon which these reform programs are based. And some of these convicts are actually former extremists or terrorists. So, and they are being rehabilitated, through these programs. In conclusion, I just actually try to brief about our comprehensive strategy. So we have demonstrated a sustainable model, and we have a balanced security with legal and human rights framework, and we are ready to share expertise with international partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very useful and comprehensive presentation, which in fact proves to me the notion of, I don't think counterterrorism can only be confronted by military. We might limit, of course, the ability of terrorism to act, to plot, to attack our infrastructure, our people, our peaceful life. But the problem always requires continuous work on addressing the issue within the society. After all, those individuals also come from societies. They are not coming from outside. They are not, of course, some of them or many of them live in isolation, but they are part of the society. So the society needs to be part. And I always say that any work on rehabilitation or counter-terrorism or counter-extremism should be a democratic process, meaning society should be involved in that. And in this direction, I think, because in Middle East, of course, also in other places, not only Middle East, but because religion in our region is an integral part of life. It's a very important component of people's life. And the problem is that extremists have managed to manipulate and poison that connection between people and their religion. So on the matter of, and because I also noticed that you spoke a lot about the importance of tolerance, promoting tolerance, religious tolerance, but also social tolerance. If you can take us to a more in-depth to the experience of Bahrain in utilizing or capitalizing on the importance of tolerance. For example, you mentioned the visit of the late Pope Francis to Bahrain. This was a very important. I mean, you know this very well. The problem with religion is that it's the question of leadership, and
Yes.
it has become, sadly, it has become easy, as I mentioned in the very early minutes. I mentioned, like, some lunatics come and say, like, I am the caliph, I am the leader, I am the top leader of Islam, you should follow me. We
So,
just need to, yeah, we just need someone to tell them, like, it's not that simple, it's complicated. That's why initiatives where we see the Imam of Al-Azhar meeting with the head of the Catholic Church, these examples are very important. How does Bahrain approach that?
we have a comprehensive legislation, especially as I mentioned in the presentation, that our Ministry of Justice and our country is the first country in the region. For example, there's laws that donations to charities. So this is one of the challenges we faced, encountering extremism. But also we have laws for the religious speeches. In my opinion, I think the Bahrain experience in this specific area can be shared with other partners and allies because it's a successful
Mhm.
experience. And again, I think it goes to the laws and legislations we have in our country.
I think while I was asking this question, I would like first to ask this person, Nagam Karhili, I think is the name. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but I think this is a very important question, Sheikh Al Anud. Um, because the online space is now becoming, especially after the defeat of many terrorist organizations, online space is becoming a very fertile and also fragile space for more radicalization, for more propaganda, for more misinformation. What are the measures that Bahrain is taking to address this question? Uh,
Yes.
keep in mind that if you remember the very recent attack in the United States in New Orleans, it is very clear that that person was radicalized online. So we are also not protected from that type of radicalism. There are young people who spend their entire life nowadays online.
It's Dr. Omar, I'm sure you know that actually one of the main challenges during this time is the online radicalization, and we recognize that. We do have some laws on safeguarding and I will say, a safe online environment, but internationally, either in the UK or the United States or any country, and as you mentioned, New Orleans attack, not security agencies, this is one of the main challenges they're facing right now. And that's why the threat of extremism and terrorism is still there. And one of their tools these days is using a lone wolf attacks, and they approach individuals online to recruit them. So we recognize this threat, and we do have laws that safeguard a safe environment. But as I said, it's still a challenge for every security agency around the world.
Amazing. Um, Also in the same direction, I think if you remember, we once had a discussion about the question of reintegration and rehabilitation, and I saw the example you mentioned. The situation, for example, in Syria has changed now, and the question of al-Hol is still the same. What are we gonna do with the remaining residents or the detainees of Al-Hol? There are many foreigners, there are many people from the area, children, women, etc. So the question now is very important when it comes to reintegration and rehabilitation. So the example, I wonder if that example you mentioned, are they returnees? Are they homegrown type of extremists? If you can take us to a more detailed, because I do believe this is a very important approach. We need to look into every aspect and the best practices so other countries might learn something from that.
It is a homegrown, unfortunately, extremism. And as I mentioned earlier, we had Iranian-backed groups which are designated as terrorist organizations by the United States, the United Kingdom, other countries as well. But this actually shows that the homegrown terrorism, we have it in Bahrain. And the rehabilitation center or the programs I gave a brief about, it is actually for some of serious offenders, some of them actually as terrorist offenders. And the success rate is, I think, it's very high. I don't want to say a number that I'm not sure of, but it's very high, and it actually proves that our programs are successful. And you mentioned also the Syria refugee camp. And also here, I would like to say that the Kingdom of Bahrain, we actually contributed in some of educational programs in these camps, and because we recognize how these refugees can be vulnerable to terrorist groups and might be recruited. So it is a dangerous situation for them.
True, it is a big it's a big challenge now. I mean, the question of potential withdrawal of the U.S. troops from the area. There are many other factors that it's also the so-called Islamic State or ISIS, Daesh is been silent for a very long time now, and this is concerning. Uh, and I do hope there will be another strategy. And this brings me to the cooperation of Bahrain. Bahrain is a member of the global coalition to defeat Daesh, and there have been discussions that coalition should expand beyond the question of just countering terrorism, the actual terrorism of the Islamic State, but should go beyond that to tackle the question of the root causes of terrorism and extremism. How is Bahrain interacting on a global level within the coalition, but also within the EU other partners?
We are very active and we are very committed in our cooperation with our partners and allies, multilaterally and bilaterally, in countering extremism and terrorism. And we also, not only we are also a NATO ally, not a member or the NATO major NATO non-NATO ally. And we also work very closely with the United Nations agencies in countering extremism and terrorism, and also with the UN Security Council resolutions, which we implement effectively and efficiently. And I think that for us in Bahrain, we proved our success in working with our partners internationally, and because we believe of the serious of threat of the extremism and terrorism, and it is an ongoing cooperation as the threat is still there, and I think every country who faces this threat of extremism and terrorism realize that it is a cross-border challenge, and international cooperation is vital in countering this challenge.
Um, There is before I go to the next question, I would like to open the floor for our audience. Please do put your questions in the dedicated section Q&A, and I will try to get some of your questions, hopefully all of them, to Sheikh Al Anoud. Um, there is a question here. Um, the person is thanking you, and also it's related to the question of de-radicalization. How is it being applied, especially this program of MAN? Um, what are the community consultations, the role of communities, surrounding communities? I do remember I had a discussion with someone from the Council of the Kingdom of Morocco, where they said they have they have also used the whole of society approach to combat extremism and terrorism, but also when it comes to rehabilitation and de-radicalization process, because some people might think rehabilitation is just reintegrating people in society. I think it takes a whole lot than just reintegrating them in society. There is a question of addressing the religious radicalization in the mind of those people because someone has put it in their mind. So, what are the techniques being used? On which expertise are you relying? What methods are you using, and how can this be adapted elsewhere?
For the first question, thank you so much. There's no name, but thank you. It's a very good question. And for us, first, we approach this with a comprehensive measures, and also, it has to do with, as I mentioned, education, and it has to do also with the local communities. So we have in Bahrain Temkeen, which is a government fund, and we have the Labor Fund as well, who support young people, especially in training and also employment. So it is, I think it's many actors important in this process, in the to de-radicalize young people. And for Ma'an, it is also, as I said, it is in cooperation with the North Carolina University. So again, it is a comprehensive program focusing on education, working workshops, and it is many ministries are involved in this program. And the next question,
Yes, there is
yeah,
another question. Uh,
yeah,
but I think let me take first the
yes.
question from Latifa bin Ali. Uh, she says, "Thank you, Sheikha, for a constructive talk. My question is about the coexistence strategy. What is the role in combating anti-Semitism, anti-extremism arising from conflict, whether religious or ethnic, in the greater region?"
Thank you, Latifa, and thank you for being here. The question again is very relevant and very important, as it is a main foreign policy as well for us, is the coexistence and tolerance policy, and how we have this message globally through King Hamad Center for Coexistence and Tolerance. So it does definitely have a role in combating extremism arising from conflict as a preventative measure, I would say. It is definitely a preventative measure to the work and that we do in spreading the values of coexistence and tolerance, and because especially the young people, they need to hear the positive message that people from different religions, different backgrounds, that they can live together, especially during the conflicts all around the region. It is a challenge, and I think this is a very important measure that should be taken by other countries as well, to try and spread the values of coexistence and tolerance. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the answer. There is another question, which is also similar to a question I had on my mind. It's related to the interfaith dialogue, which is a very important component, and I think there needs to be more work on interfaith dialogue in the Middle East. It has to, I think there needs to be more investment in that dialogue, but also developing our approach in dealing with it. I know that in Bahrain, for example, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three religions exist. They have their faith practiced normally. But are there any initiatives? Are there any examples that you would like to talk about, that you would like to highlight, that you think they are very important in how we address extremist ideologies? Because unfortunately, radicals will always be radicals. They will always find a reason to be radicals. Even if people enjoy the coexistence, there are people who will look at it and they say, no, this is not for me. I'm going to be radical. So how can we not only integrate interfaith dialogue as part of our life, but also make sure that we protect our societies?
100%, Dr. Omar. And I think we are in Bahrain very lucky because historically our people are, we have the openness of our people because we have, the ancient trade routes. So the Bahrain society, this is a genuine, character, I would say, that they are open to others regardless of their background or religion. But still, because of the changing and the fast-paced change, I would say, and geopolitical situation around the world, and especially in the Middle East, these ideologies can spread very, very quickly. And that's why we took it very seriously and we initiated many programs and we, through King Hamad Center and other programs from other ministries, we have a comprehensive cooperation on, I would say, awareness on how important people living together side by side for peace, actually to live in peace. I think our region in general is it's been long decades of war and conflict, and we realize that to counter any possible, again, it is a preventive measure to counter any possible threat from extremist ideologies. For people to have awareness about the importance of tolerance and coexistence is a very important message to spread, not only in Bahrain, it's a global message that we hope other countries can join.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the intolerance, the question um, of the rise of radical views is really growing. So that's why it's always very important to have this kind of like a perspective and to incorporate more collaboration. I think I don't know how I would like to listen from one of our guests who mentions that she works with an NGO that works on the open prisons. I just don't know how to make that person join us now, but hopefully in the future. But if you hear me, Najdal bin Ali, if you can write more in the chat, please tell us more about this program. We would really like to hear more. And there is another Sheikh Al Anoud, there is another question for you that
Mm.
from Nagam. It says, with the rise of new types of extremism and ideologically based violence across more Western nations, um, are you seeing new variants in Bahrain or the region beyond Islamic extremism? In fact, now that that she's mentioning this, I've always wanted to discuss something in the Middle East. There is a right-wing extremism growing in Middle East, but this type of right-wing extremism is not very clear. It's like, is it inspired by the European right wing or by the American right wing? It's not very clear, but it's growing among a frustrated generation. Beside the Islamic extremism in the region, have you noticed any type of other formats of extremism?
Thank you for the question, Nagam. Actually, I enjoy also your questions, so please ask more. The thing is, first, I'm not an expert in all kind of extremism, but I know that we take every kind of extremism very seriously. So, but I don't think right now in Bahrain or in the region Dr. Omar mentioned maybe it is beginning, but I really don't think that we reached the level that it's going to be a serious threat. I think the nationalism and other kind of extremism is rising, as you mentioned, in Europe and maybe America, and but not in our region yet.
Thank you. In fact, um,
to comment on that, although it's not, although the event is not Iraq, but because this question came now about other forms of extremism, and now I think more about it. There is an article, and I will share this article with you.
Yes.
Part of, because also there is a question related, like the role of women, and two questions. One is saying that I am a woman and I work in rehabilitation and counter extremism. Next question is like, what is the role of women? So it's like they answered both. But the problem of the rising extremism or extremist discourse in some parts of Iraq, for example, the the extremism that is non-religious extremism, there is a different type of extremism growing in the region, is that it is based on the this dismissal and hatred of women, and this is very concerning. It's a very concerning form of extremism that is growing, and we do not have enough information or data on how it's happening. But one of the faces of that extremism is the anti-women sentiment. If you don't mind, there are other questions that I would like to bring from the audience. One from Gianluca Elena says, talking about dialogue, extremist sympathizers condemn any form of dialogue with other religions. In your opinion, is there a way, an approach to promote tolerance and dialogue without triggering negative reactions from hardliners? I don't know how to do that. So if you
I
know,
don't think it's possible. Actually, the answer is simple. It's definitely not, simple, and that's why, we always in Bahrain have encouraged dialogue between religious leaders and also between. We have also a program, as I mentioned, that is in cooperation with Oxford University here in Cambridge and King Hamad Center, and it is targeting the youth.
yes,
And they are all from different religions. And actually, the goal is hopefully for them to be leaders in their own community. So this is an international program. So this is just one of many initiatives that I think is important even for other countries to work on. Because we definitely cannot be we will definitely this message is a good message. It's a message to live together peacefully, and I don't think we are expecting all people to welcome it. Definitely hardliners or extremist ideology individuals and leaders will not accept that. But that doesn't mean that we will stop. It means that actually we have to continue in spreading this important message to counter extremism and terrorism.
thank you. I hope you don't mind other questions.
Of course, please do.
We have a question from Tariq, who is thanking you for the insightful presentation. And the question is, given the complex intersection of regional politics, political dynamics, different religious interpretations, and regional security politics, how have the people of Bahrain responded to the government's counter-extremism policies? Do you observe general cooperation, or is there notable resistance? I don't know if this is like, is it something related? For example, is the society well integrated in the implementation of the counterterrorism policies?
Thank you for the question. His name is Tariq, was Tariq,
Tariq
right?
Arjahan, yes.
Yes. So thank you, Tariq, for the question. But I don't think your question is clear because, if you are asking that the Bahrainis are not welcoming these initiatives, I really don't think so. It is definitely welcomed by the society. They are engaging. I don't have the data with me right now, but there is a very I think, successful rate of these programs, and it is welcomed again, I think, naturally, because this is how Bahrainis are. This is how most of Bahrain, as I said, welcomes people from different backgrounds, religion, and this is Bahrain historically, and during the last couple of decades, of course, we had an influence, I would say, from we are in the region, so definitely there is some influence from extreme ideologies that is affecting some communities in the country, but it is always goes back to the Bahrainis, who they are. And that's why we are going globally right now, because we believe that this is the people as well message.
Thank you again. Um, I think there is another question that's also very important. One part of it was you already answered it when we spoke about the impact of online extremism. But as you already know, there are two ways of countering extremism. Way number one is to continuously talk about extremism, how it's dangerous, how it's devastating to society, how it's dismantling social bonds, familial bonds, because that's what terrorism does or extremism does. It destroys families. When families are destroyed, society is destroyed. But there is another approach that actually does not talk about extremism, but it is inherently is implemented to combat extremism, and that is the messages of tolerance, the messages of coexistence, the messaging of what does it mean to live and let live. Uh, so and this requires the this requires continuous development of strategies and approaches. Is Bahrain up to date with the advancement of technology, of digital practices in the direction of implementing these soft approaches of combating extremism?
I think, Dr. Omar, we realize first that there is many dimension in countering extremism and terrorism strategy, and that's why we have a holistic approach in as I said, in countering this threat. And we do realize as well that economic aspects as well affect especially young generation, and maybe being vulnerable to being recruited by these terrorist groups. So we have programs, as I said earlier, that actually train and support them, and also to have a job. And I think this is what every young person in the Middle East want, is to live in a prosperity. Um, and your question, I think it is in technology. We do have, realize that how important it is, but I am not aware, honestly, of a specific program on that. But we definitely recognize how important it is during this, especially during these times of the rise of AI. And I'm sure, as how the ISK in Afghanistan, especially, are using this AI and special social media apps, and reaching out to individuals around the world, it's from Latin America to America, Europe, and it is a dangerous thing. But I think it is something, it's a work in progress for every country. I think it's not only Bahrain.
Thank you again. There is another question from Aurelia Finch,
Yeah.
who also thanking you for the timely discussion, and it's also, I think this is a very important question, which is related to the discourse of interfaith. And I don't, of course, I will leave you to answer, but I would like to disagree with the fact that the question of interfaith dialogue in Middle East involving only the people of the book, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I think there are more initiatives. I have been part of something related to the Vatican, where initiatives have involved other faiths. But is that the case in Bahrain? Do you think? Because I think also in Bahrain, and I think I have to say this, that Bahrain or extremism against Bahrain is not only from radicalized individuals. There's a state-sponsored type of extremism addressed at Bahrain. For example, Iran, other players in the region who would like to harm Bahrain. So it is far more complex than just orange. But I leave the question to you to answer if you don't mind, Sheikh Ala.
Thank you, Aurelia, so much for your question. It's a very important one. And interfaith dialogue, I think in Bahrain, we started it more than 10 years ago. So we had many conferences, people from all around the world, religious leaders, I would say, from different religions and backgrounds. And if it's only for the people of the book, I am not sure. But I think, as far as I know, it is about interfaith dialogue because it says about the faith. So it's about people, religious leaders so far. And because we really believe that religious leaders' messaging is very important in having a tolerant societies. And also, Dr. Omar, I think Aurelia had a very good question for you. Um, I don't know if you answered it already. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for what you said. We are trying to keep promoting tolerance, coexistence, because Sheikh Al-Anud, I have seen what terrorism can do. I have seen what destruction it can bring. Mosul is being celebrated now as having recovered its cultural heritage. People are returning, but the scars of that destruction are very deep, and they require more time to heal. So that's why I think these kind of discussions are very important. I think we also need to bring the voice of our region, Bahrain, other countries. We need to hear that voice. We need to share that message, because the challenge of extremism in our region is much more complicated. It's much more difficult than just the question of a different opinion. This is not about different opinions. This is about individuals or groups who systematically wish to harm the sustainability and coexistence our region once enjoyed, and hopefully it will be restored and continue to be a place of shared values, coexistence, and diversity. We have 2 minutes left. I would like to leave a minute and a half to you to say your last remarks, and then we will close this discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omar, for this opportunity, and I hope the audience learned about Bahrain experience in countering extremism and terrorism. And even though we are geographically small, but I think our experience is a model, and it can be learned from. And I think that also we are ready to share our expertise and with the global partners as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to also applaud Noor Al-Mansouri for what she mentioned about the King Hamad Center. Thank you for all what you do. Please continue doing what you are doing. And I really appreciate the idea of the greenhouses of worship. I think this is a brilliant idea. I would like to learn more about it. But also on your cooperation with the EU, I think this is very important. Please continue doing that and involve more students from across the world. Thank you very much. Sheikh Al-Anud, thank you again for your time, for your insights, and many thanks to our audience for being very active in this discussion. This was Omar Muhammad, and I see you hopefully next week or in next month. Thank you very much.